Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday. Let me erase this real quick. I'm just going to assume y'all can hear me. If you can't hear me, if you're having trouble hearing me, go ahead and let me know in the messages there. But we'll go ahead and get started here. Just want to go over a few quick ground rules. So we are coming at you live from my house. I do have a dog. I am expecting a package today. So it wouldn't surprise me if that package got delivered during the office hours today. My wife is also, she's a teacher, and she is now done with school. So she's home, so she may be going in and out of the house, and the dog might be barking and stuff like that. So bear with me. We'll get through the summer here, and just keep in mind that no new clubs. I already got my new clubs, Dave. But so I just want to go over some more quick ground rules here. So number one, I'm only going to be answering questions that are asked during the office hours. So if you asked, I'll go ahead and let you know who I'm going to start with here. I'll go ahead and I'll start with Robert B. I have been a lefty all of my lights. So it looked like he went on. So I'll start with Richard S. So if you asked a question from before Richard S., where Richard S. starts out saying he has a problem hitting the big ball before the little one. So if you asked a question before that and you're on the office hours right now, make sure just go ahead and copy and paste that above there in the messages, and then we'll get to it here as we go through. The reason why I'm doing that is I just want to make sure that I'm answering questions for people that are here, rewarding the people that are here watching the office hours live. So if you ask a question, and just make sure that you ask it during the office hours. If you have to take off or something like that, you can't stick around. I completely understand. It's not everyone has it in their schedule just to be able to sit around and listen to me talk for an hour. I completely understand that. Ask your question. We are archiving these. You can see them on the office hours highlights page. So if you go to the top of the page, there's an office hours tab there. If you hover your mouse over that, and below it'll drop down menu that says office hours highlights. You can go and watch kind of the some of the best questions from last week, and also you can see the whole thing. They're all archived. So after every single one, within about 30 minutes, I'll go in and I'll archive it. So take a look at it later that night and see if your question got answered. If you asked it in the very beginning, I'd kind of look in the beginning and see if it's in there. And then the last thing I wanted to mention here is that if you ask a question that can be easily answered by a course that we have on the website or a specific video, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to steer you in the direction of that video because that's going to more easily help you, or it's going to be better for you. Trust me. So an example of something like that would be, hey, how do I fix my slice? Well, I'm not going to go through 10, 15-minute lesson here on how all the intricacies of fixing your slice and all that. You're going to be much better suited to go to our Never Slice Again course and just work through the drills on there. And Clay will show you, and you can watch things on the flight scope and things like that. You can see everything that's going on. It's going to be a lot easier to understand for you. So that's what I would highly recommend. So keep that in mind when you're asking questions. If it's on, if it's basically a specific course on the site, I'm going to steer you in that direction. So without further ado here, I will start with Richard S. Let me go ahead and get a drink real quick. All right. So Richard S. says, I have a problem of hitting the big ball before the little one. All the ranges in my area you hit off match, which is hard to tell if you are making good contact. I get to use a full swing simulator 3 times a week for about 2 hours each time. Do you have any suggestion for hitting off of mats? Thanks. So as far as hitting off of mats is concerned, unfortunately, there's just no replacement for actual turf. I know even there's some mats that have like kind of rough on them or things like that. Even those, they may make a little bit of a difference, but not much of a difference. Your club, there's going to be a hard surface under that your club's going to slide off of, and it's not going to dig, and it's going to hit the golf ball. So it's almost like, hitting out of a bunker every single time, using the bounce of the wedge is just going to kind of glide through there. So it's really, really hard to tell. There's really just no way around it. Unfortunately, I wish I had a magic answer for you, but just sometimes I think after you hit on mats for a while and you get an understanding and feel for what's chunk shot and kind of how the ball feels when you make that happen, I think you get better and you understand, okay, yeah, that was a chunk shot. That's not what I want. You start getting a better feeling for what's ball first contact instead of the mat. But, it's just hard to tell on mats most of the time. I'm not sure what you mean by hitting the big ball before the little one. So if there's something I didn't answer there, let me know. But I'm not really sure exactly what you mean by that. So if you have you want me to follow up on that, go ahead and type a message in there, and I'll see what I can do there. So Robert B says he's been a lefty swinger all of his life. As a righty golfer, I am sensitive to all the body part movements. I just saw Clay's new video on the arm use, speed, and the swing. Well, I get better results with just creating centrifugal force from my body drive turn that whips my arms through ball impact and release as a result of what I thought you guys were teaching. Arm, hand. Yeah, so a lot of what golf is, your feel isn't always real, right? So if you do what works the best for you, what gives you the best contact. But I will tell you that tour players, most of your speed is going to come from your arms. I mean, you can. I haven't watched the video that you're referring to, but I think I did see the thumbnail on like Clay swinging from his knees. If that's the video that I'm thinking of. So 85% of your speed comes from your arms. If you don't move your body at all and you move your arms, if you normally swing 100 miles per hour, you could probably get 80 miles per hour from just swinging your arms only. So a lot of that speed comes from your arms, absolutely. But if you swing all arms, everything's going to become very timing based, very. You're usually going to release the club early because you're not opening up your body as you're coming through. That you're not leading with the lower body, and you're also leaving out some speed because the lower body, that's what creates momentum for your upper body. So if you haven't seen the video, there's a great video on the website that I think you should watch. It's called just search Momentum Train. I believe it's in the straight line release section. But in the upper right-hand corner of about any page on the website, there's a search window there. It works very well. So you can just search Momentum Train. And Clay talks about basically how the swing, the downswing, kind of starts from the ground up. And that's the way you want the sequencing to be. So you're pushing into the ground with your legs. You're getting the lower body to rotate. Then the torso's going. Then the arms going. And then the club is going. So that creates momentum. So he talks about the trains. You have one train that's going 60 miles per hour, and then you have another train that's on top of that that's also going 60 miles per hour, and then you have another train. So all these trains stacked up on top of each other. Once you get all those going, I mean, it adds up to a very high speed. So that's what's going on when you are sequencing correctly and using that right to get the speed. So that's what I'd be looking at there. I'm not sure exactly if you had a question or not, but just thought I would just discuss that. If you had a question pertaining to that, don't hesitate to ask. But it sounds like Robert was just kind of sharing. So if I missed something there, again, just put it in the messages there, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. All right. So Dave S says, sounds good. Thanks. New package, new clubs. Actually, no, I ordered a trimmer edger for my yard here. So it should be coming in the mail today. I actually just got new clubs. A lot of you saw the Ping. We're now Clay is now an ambassador for Ping. So I went over to the facility with Clay. Awesome guys. I had a few Ping clubs growing up. I've had a couple Ping putters, and I used to have some Ping wedges and irons. Never really dabbled in their woods before, but I went over the facility and hit the clubs. Actually went and we went and played golf with some of their engineers that they had there. Great guys, and tried some of the clubs. They just brought some clubs out, some like basically demo clubs that they had laying around because they didn't want us to haul our clubs over there. And obviously, the clubs that we had before weren't all ping clubs, and their boss basically said that they wouldn't let us play ping club anything other than ping clubs if we went out with them. But so yeah, we went out and I played. I tell you what, I played about as good as I have in a long time, actually. Just playing their clubs. So it might have been kind of a honeymoon phase, but the clubs felt great. Really, really liked the clubs. The driver was great. I was hitting, I got an extra probably 10 yards out of the driver when I had it timed nicely it was a different shaft than what I was used to, but when I got it timed nicely, hit it very well. And it could have been just it was warmer and things like that, but went out to got fitted at their facility, awesome facility, the factory and everything. And carried one of the 3-woods 270. Haven't done that before. I mean, the fairway woods and the driver are just they feel really great. They sound great. So yeah, if you're in the market for new clubs, now I'm not saying that you're going to get ping clubs and you're going to be an excellent golfer. Clubs really don't make that much of a difference. I mean, there is a big difference between getting quality clubs in playing, clubs from like a box store or something like that. If you're talking about quality, but most of the big names, they're quality clubs. If you have a set of those, you're probably in good shape. But if you're in the market for new clubs, the amount of engineering and time and everything that they put into it, they don't spend a ton of money on marketing like other club companies do. They most of that, that money that a lot of companies use on marketing, they use for their engineering to make the best possible club. They don't make any sacrifices. They've had the ability to make adjustable type clubs for a long time, but doing that, you have to make compromises in other areas of the club, and they just didn't want to do that. So they finally, a lot of people think they've been behind in the engineering. Well, they're just not making gimmicky clubs, basically. So I really like that about the company. I ended up getting a whole new set of ping clubs. I'm not an ambassador, so I didn't get them for free like Clay did. But I was so blown away by their facility and everything. So yeah, if you're in the market for clubs, the hybrids and the woods are the best I've ever hit. They're really, really awesome. I think the wedges are nice too. So check them out if you're in the market for sure. Give them a try. Jeremiah says, when executing the backswing, do you rotate around the back leg? So absolutely. So when you are, let me get a drink real quick. When you are starting the backswing, you are absolutely, your leg is it's internally rotating. So what that means is your leg is basically doing this, right? So I have terrible internal rotation on my leg, but most people can turn their leg in quite a bit. Probably about 45 degrees. I can only turn mine in like maybe 20 degrees, which is why I have to set up with my feet flared out. But yeah, when you are turning in the backswing, you're rotating in on this leg. So if you were, I'm basically doing that on my leg as I'm going back. You are turning on that back leg. So absolutely. And if you have a limited range of motion like me, if you go like this and you put your foot like this, okay, so you get on your trail leg, and then you just try to turn. See how much you can turn. If you can get to 45 degrees, that's pretty good. As you can see, I can only do about 20 degrees maybe. And you actually want to do this test barefoot because you can kind of move your foot around in your shoe, and I was actually kind of doing that there. So yeah, you can kind of see that I can only turn my feet so much. So I actually do it from this way, so you can kind of see. So I can only turn about that much. So that means I have a limitation there. So if you do that test, you can't turn more than 45 degrees, or it's actually 60 degrees, I think is what they go to as far as the testing is concerned. If you have a limitation there, you're not going to be able to set up with your feet square like this and have a full range of motion. Because watch, if I do that, my hips can only turn that much. I've got to turn this out so I can get my hips to turn so that I don't have a limited backswing. So absolutely, you are definitely rotating around your back leg in the backswing. Dave S. says, I have one of your Unlimited Swing Review students. Excuse me. This forward shaft lean is something I'm really struggling with, as you know. I am confused on what the hands are doing directly at impact and still missing something. Can you demonstrate or share a video to help? So what the hands are doing at impact is essentially delivering the club to the golf ball. So if we watch what's coming down, we want to be squaring up that face early. So in the downswing, we want to be coming down. We want to be getting this feeling. So the tennis racket drill is a really great one. I have an extra tennis racket in my garage. I keep meaning to bring it in here so I can kind of demonstrate this. But the tennis racket drill is a really, really great one. So if you can just visualize this, the face of this club, let me angle this up a little bit. The face of this club being like a tennis racket. So if we're shallowing out this club, the face of that club is pointing up, right? It's pointing up to the sky. That's where the strings will be pointing. So that's shallowing out the club. We've got to do that to get forward shaft lean at impact. Otherwise, if we're coming down steep, what's going to happen? There's several things that can happen, but what most people do is they shallow that club out to get the club to come back down on plane. Because most of us have played plenty of golf and we're good athletes. And in order to get that club to come back to where we need it, we're going to stand up and we're going to end up flipping the club and squaring the face by doing this action, by flipping the club through. What you need to do to square the face is turn that handle down so that at impact you have forward shaft lean. So if you watch here, if I have forward shaft lean and I keep that wrist at the same angle, look, that face is wide open. So now if I have forward shaft lean and I turn the handle down, see my left wrist, see how I'm doing like that? If I turn the handle down, now I have a square club face and I can hit the ball squarely. So that's basically what's going on in the downswing so that you can get that club face to square up. So if we watch that tennis racket drill, the strings are pointing up to the sky. That's the shallowing of the club. And then we want it to kind of point back toward the camera as we're coming down. So it's shallowing. That's what the move is. It's that right there. And what that allows you to do is, one, the shallowing allows the club to be on plane so that we don't have to go like that to get it to come down on plane. The shallowing allows that to be on plane so that we can stay in our posture and rotate through. And then that squaring of the club face allows you to get that forward or that square club face when you have forward shaft lean. Because if you don't turn that handle down as you're coming down, what's going to happen to square the face? You've got to flip the club. And when you do that, you're going to stand up typically. So when you see that you're standing up in the swing, a lot of times it's either because you're coming down steep and you got to stand up to make room for the club, or maybe you're not coming down steep, but you're not squaring the club face properly. So you flip the club to square the face, and then you have to stand up out of it. Otherwise, you'll dig the club into the ground. So, Dave, what I was talking about with you is I think what you like to do a lot of times, you like to constantly hit the golf ball. So what we want to do is we always have to break things down and go very, very slow, especially when things are happening in the downswing. That's when things happen very, very quickly. If you look at your swing on camera, if you use the V1 app, there's actually a timer on the video, and you can see exactly how long from when your club switches directions. So you're going up here, the club switches directions. That's when the downswing is starting. So if you go from there and you go to impact, look at what the timestamp is at the top of the swing to what it is at the bottom of the swing. It's usually a quarter of a second to a third of a second. It's usually somewhere in that area. So there's not a lot of time to think about what's going on. So what you have to do is you have to train your body to do it and to make it second nature, to make it natural. In order to do that, you have to do it very, very, very slow at first, and you have to exaggerate things as much as you possibly can. So, Dave, what we were talking about was basically what I was having Dave do, because what Dave's doing is he's coming into impact. Dave's shallowing out the club well, but when he's coming into impact, he's doing this with the club face to square it up. He's flipping with this hand, and that's making him kind of stand up as he's coming through. So what I'm having to do is, for any issue in the golf swing, what you got to do is you have to exaggerate the opposite of what's going on. So what would be the opposite of this, flipping through to square up the club face and standing up. The opposite would be getting lower and turning that handle down to where it's already square as he's coming into the ball. And then from there, it's this. You're way open. You have a square club face. Let me angle this down a little bit. So what I'm having him do is I'm having him do an exaggeration of 1.2 from the move. So at 1.2 from the move, you're going up to the top. You're coming down to where your hands are in front of your trail thigh. You're turning that handle down. So if you watch from this angle, I'm taking this handle and I'm going like that. I'm turning it down to the ground. So that's with the wrist here. I'm turning that down. My right wrist is relaxed and it's bending back. You're not going to see any tour players who have their trail wrist flat at impact. That is the trait of a flipper. That's flipping through impact. Every tour player that trail wrist is bent back like that, every single one. Unless they're hitting a bunker shot, that is the only time that you want to flip the club. But yeah, that wrist is bent back like that. So what we want to do is we want to go up to the top, come down here. Let's get those hands down by the knee, get really, really low, then turn that handle down. And then from there, I want you to rotate through impact. So now look, this is the position that I'm in. My body's opened up. My club face, can't really see my club face, but my club face is square. My body is opened up. I have tons of forward shaft lean. And then from there, I'm releasing out in front. So you can see I'm releasing way out in front. So the straight line release is a result of getting forward shaft lean. If you're getting forward shaft lean at impact, you're most likely releasing that club 45 degrees out in front. And when we talk about straight line release, that's where the club is splitting the forearms in the downswing. So that's what you want to do. Get in plenty of reps where you're going up to the top, coming down here, hands down by the knees, turning that handle down, then coming into impact. It's from here, it's mainly just rotation of the body. I'm not really moving my arms much. It's my rotation. I'm rotating my hips into impact and my shoulders moving up a little bit, but that's mostly from the rotation of my body through impact. And now I have forward shaft lean. I have tons of forward shaft lean. This is way more than I would actually want in my golf swing, but I'm really exaggerating that to help me get the feeling of what I'm trying to do. And then once you start to get more comfortable with that and understanding what you're wanting to do, now let's do some slow, fluid practice swings. No golf balls. Slow, fluid practice swings where you're going up to the top and you're replicating that same motion. So you're coming down, you're turning that handle down, you're getting that handle down as low as you can, and you are rotating through impact and coming all the way up into a full finish. Then start speeding that up. So do it, whatever, maybe it's at, maybe you're only able to do it at 5% speed at first. Start to speed that up. Every time you work on it, try to get a little bit faster at it, get better at it. I mean, this only takes 20 minutes of practice a day. And for some people, that might be a lot. For some people, they're thinking 20 minutes, I could do that, right? So 20 minutes of practice a day. And this is not something you have to go to the range to do. You can do this at home. You have space. I have an office here. I have space where I could actually do this in here if I wanted to. I have a yard. I could go out there and do it in there as well. But if you have any sort of space where you can do this, maybe go to a park or something like that, because you're not hitting golf balls or anything, and practice getting that. Get it in a practice swing first. Make sure you're squaring that club face as you're coming through, getting that handle turned down as you're coming through. And then once you get to where you're able to see an exaggerated amount, like you're coming into impact, you're really turning that handle down, you've got that club face square, it's a ton of forward shaft lean, and you're at full speed with it. Now let's try to add the golf ball. And when you add the golf ball, don't care about where it goes. Don't care about where the contact is or anything like that. Just try to hit it. I mean, it's just another focus that you have there. Because a lot of times when people add the golf ball, they think, oh, I got to hit the golf ball now. And they don't remember what they did. It's not going to be an automatic thing yet. You still have to figure out how to hit the golf ball and do that at the same time. So focus on the movement as you're hitting the golf ball. Don't care about where the golf ball goes. You're probably going to hit it terrible a lot. And every now and then you're going to catch one and it's going to come off the face like a rocket. And you're going to see, okay, now I know what I need to do. And you know what? You might hit the next 15 of them terrible, but you're still every time you hit one, you're basically seeing what you're trying to do and making it happen by exaggerating it and not caring about it. And then eventually you're going to start hitting the ball better and better and better as you get comfortable with it. So this takes time. I mean, I went through all that. It's not something that's going to happen in a day. It's not something that's going to happen in a week. It may not even be months. I mean, if you're working super hard at it every day for a couple hours every day, everybody's a little bit different, but you're talking 2 or 3 weeks to actually start to feel comfortable with it. And that's if you're working on it every day. Making swing changes in the downswing is very difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. That's why you have to take it slow, break it down, pause at key checkpoints, exaggerate everything as much as you possibly can, and then start to speed it up to where it's full speed with the practice swing. Get the full speed with the practice swing. Try to get it in an exaggerated state, even in your full speed practice swing. And then once you see that and you're like, okay, I think I can add a golf ball now, add the golf ball and don't care about where the golf ball goes. Another tip along with that, if you add the golf ball and you just can't get over that, because when you add the golf ball, that adds another focus, right? So you're focusing on something else now, not only just the movement, but you have to hit the golf ball. Not only do you have to hit the golf ball, you have to hit it with a square club face, with the center of the club face. You're trying to hit it with speed. You're trying to hit it with, a club path that isn't too far into out or too far out to in. There's a lot. You're trying to hit the ball before the ground. There's a lot of things going on there that you have to focus on, and it takes away from the movement. So that's why it's really important when you go to hit the golf ball, you can't care about any of that. You got to just focus on hitting it and not anything else, just making contact with it. And honestly, if you miss it, that's completely fine. Just keep trying to hit it. And then once you actually start hitting it a little bit, realize, okay, well, if the ball's going left every time and I have forward shaft lean, I'm turning this handle down too much. You got to look at it on video and see what's going on, but I'm turning this handle down too much. I'm going to exaggerate that a little bit less and just ease off of that feeling a little bit to straighten that out. Then that's your next goal. So just try to build on it every time you work on it. If you make small improvements every single time that you work on it, over time, that's going to add up to a huge improvement. It just takes time to get there. And if you're diligent with it, you'll see big changes. But going back to what I was saying about if you're having trouble with the golf ball, maybe just to hit at something, to have a focus of something there, maybe just change to hitting a piece of paper or a golf tee or a leaf or something like that. Just change to hit something that's not necessarily the golf ball, but something that it doesn't matter if your club face is square or if you hit it before the ground or anything like that. It's just something to hit at. So that might be a good way to transition to the golf ball. But it takes time to do that. It's not easy. It's not for everyone. Some people, they just get tired of trying to improve and it's just too difficult. And they're just happy with the way their game is. And at that point, I wouldn't work on any technique. I would just be working on ball striking type drills, getting a better awareness of the center of the face and how everything works. But your technique, that's what's going to make things a little bit easier to make that happen. So it's kind of a yin and yang situation there. But yeah, it just takes time. So hopefully, Dave, that helps. If you have any more questions, feel free. I saw you sent me an email, and I'll try to get to you as soon as I can. But it may be, later tonight until I get back to you. All right. So spent a lot of time on that there. So Robert B asked, he said he just saw Clay's video on arm speed. Again, I haven't seen the video, so I'm not sure what's all in that. But he's been through the TSG 5-step system, 5-step training, and get great results when I just turn my body to create centripetal force. So I thought you guys talked it in the arm or hand use in the slow swing speed. Did I get it wrong? So no, your arm and your hands, that's where most of your speed comes from. But 80-85% of your speed. But if you're only using your arms and your hands and you're not using your body to create momentum, then you're leaving speed out there. Your body is where the rest of that comes from. And that's also where the proper sequencing of the swing comes from to help you get, what we just talked about in Dave's question, help you get that forward shaft lean. If you're using all arms and hands and your body is squared to the golf ball at impact, you're usually going to be releasing that club early. Your body's got to be rotating open. Otherwise, that club's going to typically release. So if you think about it this way, if I'm rotating like this and I have this club out in front of me, if I'm rotating like this and then I suddenly come to a stop, so boom, this club is going to want to release. So that's what's kind of that's an exaggeration of what's happening in the golf swing. When you are getting the body rotating and then you kind of stall out everything and throw the hands at it, you can get speed from that, but you're going to be releasing that club early and adding loft to the face. So you're taking the compression out of the face. You might be able to get a little bit more speed, but you're taking that compression out of the face. What you want to do is you wanted to have that releasing out in front, so you're getting the best of both worlds there. You're getting the body continuing to accelerate and rotate open. In reality, it's not, but that's the feeling that you want to have, that you're continuing to push and rotate open. So you're getting that club to whip through there, and you're also getting the de-lofting of the face. You're getting that club to whip through, but you're de-lofting the face, and it's releasing out here in front. And that's going to get you the de-lofted face, the compression. So imagine like hitting someone with a sledgehammer versus hitting something with a wedge. You're getting that compression out. This is why, a driver goes a lot further than a wedge, right? It's because of the loft on the face. If you're adding loft to the face, you're not going to hit it as far. And distance is a big part of this game. So that's essentially what you want to do, is you want to get that body working. But if you're playing, listen, it's not an easy thing to do. If you're playing great golf and your feeling is using all arms, and just because your feeling is that doesn't mean that's the reality of what's going on. Maybe you're sequencing correctly and your feeling is just that you're using all arms, but your sequencing is good. Well, in that case, I mean, there's going to be a lot, that's great. I mean, that's what you want to have happen, right? That makes golf a lot easier when that's the thing that's going on. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, if you're using all arms in your swing and that's the reality of what's going on, you're definitely leaving some speed on the table and you're most likely flipping the club. But you'd have to look at your swing on camera to know that for sure. All right, so moving along here. I spent too much time on probably some questions, so hopefully I'll try to get – I apologize if I don't get all your questions answered today, but wanted to make sure that Dave got a good answer there on his question. So Mike K says, hello, I have a 17-year-old daughter that did speed training over the winter. She increased her speed up to 100 miles per hour. The problem is she's moving her lower body a lot, causing hip sway. What drills can he work on to keep the lower body quiet and stable while maintaining the increased club head speed? So if you're sliding the hips, that just means that you're not rotating. So I'm not sure if it's sliding in the backswing or in the downswing, but what you want to feel is that in your backswing, in order to stop the sway, because usually what happens when you sway, what happens is you're going to kind of lock up your hips and it's going to be hard to rotate. So if you draw that line on the outside of her hips and the outside of her ankle, you don't really want her going into that line too much. So what that can cause issues with is just too much moving around, and it can cause some inconsistencies. But if it's not causing any issues, then I don't see any reason to fix it, and you're getting added club head speed, so that's a positive. So we always want to look at what's going on at impact and then work our way back to the technique. So if she's not having problems with contact or with rotation or things like that, and because that's the only thing that the sway can make things difficult with, is have your spine kind of moving around a little bit. So I'd have to kind of see the swing to know exactly what's going on there. But a good feeling, if you see that there's a lot of hip sway, which can make things difficult for impact, is you just want to feel that weight going to the inside of your foot. If it gets on the outside of your foot at all, that means that your mass is most likely moving that way. So just feel like you're getting a good turn into your lead side, and then that's pushing this hip back and out of the way, and that allows you to rotate your hips and rotate your shoulders, and it should allow you to get a little bit more speed. Now, if it's in the downswing, you see a slide in the downswing, it's like this. That's going to be our compression line section. Your hips kind of getting outside there. So to get to our courses, click on that home icon, and scroll down and go to the compression line section. Lots of drills there. One drill is to put an alignment stick outside of your foot here, and then take some swings and try to make sure that you're staying behind. You're not going into that alignment stick, that you're staying behind that as you're coming through. And that's going to force you to turn your hip back and out of the way. There's also a great drill that's not in that, that's not in the compression line, but it's a step drill, which is going to help you to feel that momentum going into your lead leg, and then you'll be able to push and rotate open. So if you search weight shift and go to the stop chunking, or go to the stop chunking and topping section, go to the weight shift drill in there. That's a great one. It's going to have the step drill in there, which will also help with that sliding. So those are the two big ones there that I would take a look at. But that would be only if it's really causing issues. If it's not causing any issues, then it's not really something that I worry about too much. All right, so Jeremiah says hitting the ground earth. So for help with that, I would recommend going to our stop chunking and topping section. If you go to click the house icon, top of the page, stop chunking and topping section, it's really a product of the same issue, the chunking and the topping. So if you're hitting the ground before the golf ball, which sounds like that's what's going on, I didn't really get any more information on that. It just says hitting the ground. If you're doing that, then you're going to want to work through that section. All right. Clay's left heel comes off the ground about an inch at impact when he is driving. Is this deliberate or the result of centrifugal forces related to the speed of the swing? And can you discuss the forward backward weight shift of the downswing? So basically what's happening is when Clay is coming down, and you're actually going to see this in a lot of tour players too, long drive guys, is basically they're putting so much force into the ground, and as the centrifugal force is kind of going that way, it kind of pulls them off the ground. So look at someone like Patrick Reed, or look at Ricky Fowler when he's really trying to get into one, Justin Thomas, a lot of long drive competitors. You're going to see as they're coming into impact, they're putting a lot of force into the ground. And then what happens is one, it's kind of the jumping aspect. So they're actually kind of jumping off the ground with that lead foot. And it's also from the forces of the club kind of going down that lifts them off the ground. You have to have a lot of speed to be able to do that. And you have to be able to sequence correctly in order to do that. But if you're looking for the best drills to be able to do that, that's going to be the step drill, getting that momentum moving forward, and then the pushing into the ground to rotate the body open and to start the sequence of the upper body correctly. That's how you're able to do that. But yeah, there's a lot more people doing that, more so like long drive guys that are, stronger for their weight, guys like Ricky Fowler and Justin Thomas. They're doing stuff like that too. All right, so Robert B says, okay, Q, thanks for the answer on arm use of the swing, but when I actively pull my arms around my body, they have a tendency to overcome the lower body. So that means that you are not creating momentum from your lower body. And everyone's different the way that they actively feel things. What you actively feel and what I actively feel are two different things. But what you need to feel is, or not necessarily what you need to feel, but what needs to happen is the lower body needs to lead the way for the right downswing sequencing. So if you're actively throwing your arms at it and your arms are overcoming your body, then you're not using your legs to pull everything through. So that's what should be initially. So if you're like this in the backswing, right, typically you're going to get the lower body working, and it's the upper body kind of going with the lower body, and then that's creating momentum for the upper body, and then it catches up, and that's releasing out in front. If you're releasing that club out in front, most likely your sequencing is correct, unless you're deliberately kind of slowing things down on purpose with your arms to make that happen. I do see that sometimes, but it's very, very rare when that happens. But really what you need to be doing is I would go to that video, the momentum train video, because that's the one that's really, hopefully that's going to paint the picture for you. Because basically what Clay does is he takes alignment sticks, puts it through the belt loops here, puts it on the shoulders, and shows you the sequencing of what's going on. And that's going to allow you to understand that the lower body's got to be leading the way. So you're definitely using your arms, but I would try to feel like the sequence, it's pulling the arms up against the body because your lower body's getting out in front, and then you're really firing the arms at the golf ball. And if that sequencing is correct, that's what's going to happen. You're going to get it releasing out in front like that. All right. So Alan B says, could you explain why it's beneficial to square the club face during the downswing as opposed to setting up a forward shaft lean with a square club face and just keep the hand position constant throughout the swing? So as far as setting up with forward shaft lean and a square club face, like if you do that, it's not going to be, you're not going to have a dynamic swing and you're going to lose out on a lot of speed. So if I go like this, I have forward shaft lean and a square club face, and I just rotate my arms like this, well, one, I'm going to have a hard time getting that club to stay on plane, and because I'm not rolling the hands back like that. So I'm just going to be going like that. So that's about as far as I can go doing that. So I'm going to end up kind of coming in like this. And sure, I could probably hit the ball with some forward shaft lean, but you're not going to have a lot of speed on it, and it's not going to be very dynamic. So what you want to do is you want to set up. And the other thing is, just because you do something at address, that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen at impact. You can set up with all the forward shaft lean you want, because you can still do this. And I see people try to do this. I see people, they set up at address, forward shaft lean like this, and they just try to go like that. Well, they still go like that through impact. They still get that right hand in there. So just because you set up that way doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. But if you watch there, if I do that, I can't really get any lag. I'm basically just using all shoulders in the swing. So if I don't roll the club over my hands like that, I'm not going to be able to get lag, and I'm not going to be able to shallow out the club. So I'm typically going to be coming down steep into the golf ball and chopping down into it or whatnot, things like that. So we want to be squaring up that club face in the downswing so that as we come into impact, we have forward shaft lean. Because if we don't, and we leave those wrist angles the same when we have forward shaft lean, that club face is wide open. So we got to turn that handle down to get that forward shaft lean. And that's what allows you to get speed and distance. If you don't kind of roll the hands over, and get the proper wrist hinge at the top, and you just go like that and basically just move your shoulders like that, that's all the difference you're going to get. But if I go like that, now I have tons of forward shaft lean, or I have tons of lag. I'm going to be able to create speed in the downswing. In a game that's very largely based on getting distance, it's going to be hard to play golf. Like, you can play golf hitting basically, a lot of people hit pitch shots like that, but those are short shots that you're trying to control very much, and the swing is slower when you do that. You can get away with it on a pitch shot, absolutely, a short pitch shot, but if you're actually trying to get distance and speed, forward shaft lean is great. It's going to allow you to get some compression and distance on the golf ball, but speed is the number one thing for distance. So that's really going to take the speed out of your club head if you really just try to keep everything locked in and just move your shoulders only. Alfonso says, I tend to hit my irons on the tip of the face of the club. What should I do? So it sounds like you're kind of hitting it out on the toe. So if you're hitting it out on the toe, the easiest way to get that strike in the center of the face is to actually intentionally try to strike it off the heel. So if you line up normally and you normally hit it here, then I would actually intentionally try to strike it on the heel. So what that will most likely do is move it closer to the center. So let's say you actually still hit it way out on the toe. Exaggerate it even more. Get it to where it's really moving out there. You may even want to feel like you're kind of in your toes a little bit when you're coming into the golf ball to help you get the heel out to the golf club. Most likely, people that are swinging over the top will tend to hit the ball off the toe quite a bit because the club head is moving away from the golf ball. So if I'm swinging over the top, my club head is moving this way when I'm swinging down, right? So my sweet spot of my club is moving in that direction, which tends to make you a little bit more likely to hit it on the toe. So the first thing I do is I intentionally try to strike it on the heel to try to get that strike more on the center of the face. If you actually strike it on the heel, ease off the feeling. If you still strike it off the toe, exaggerate it even more. And then if you're looking for some feels in the swing, some things in the swing to take away from that, is look at your swing on camera. See if you're coming over the top. If you're coming over the top, go to our Never Slice Again section and get that club working from the inside, and that will make it a little bit easier to strike it on the center of the face. You could also feel like you're a little bit more in your toes as you're coming into impact to move that strike closer to the center. Let me get a drink here real quick. All right, so Larry C says, I had trouble with balls above my feet. Conventional wisdom is to aim further right, but I do that. I usually push the ball further to the right. So if the ball is above your feet, typically I recommend choking up on the club a little bit because that will help you get the lie angle close to it, and depending on how extreme it is. But yeah, just choke up on the club a little bit. That will also give you a little bit more control of it. But yeah, typically you do want to aim a little bit to the right, because when the club is like this, let me get a marker here. So if I have the club like this, this is dead. This is a center lie, okay? So it's a flat lie. If I have the ball above my feet and the club is like that, look at where the marker's pointing. It's pointing over to the left. And if the ball's below my feet, it's going to kind of go to the right a little bit. Now, it's exaggeration, but yeah, typically you do want to aim to the right a little bit because, one, the club's kind of coming around your body more, and you're going to tend to hit the ball with a more into-out path. And the other thing is the club face is going to be closed down a little bit. So that is the conventional wisdom. If you do it too much, then you almost turn it into hitting uphill, right? And then that's just going to end up to a push out to the right. So unfortunately, there isn't a way to practice this on a range. But if you have a chance, if you're hitting a practice round, you see a lie that's kind of above or below your feet, test how much you need to aim depending on how much the slope is. It's just something you got to practice, be able to get a feel for it. But in general, just choking up on the club a little bit and aiming a little bit to the right. If you're a right-handed golfer, it's going to tend to want to draw on you a little bit, and the face is going to tend to be a little bit more closed. But yeah, if you're essentially aiming so far to the right that you're hitting basically up the slope, well, at that point, it's going to result in a push because you're not getting, the face isn't necessarily closing because you're hitting more of an uphill. The ball isn't necessarily above your feet as much anymore. So something you got to tinker with, and I would just go around and practice it and play around with it. But in general, yes, that is what happens. Maybe you're leaving the face open as well. Maybe that's what's going on, and you have a tendency to do that. And if that's the case, then I wouldn't aim to the right. I'd aim right at the hole, and that will likely cancel out each other. It's just to each their own on that. You just got to do what works best for you. You might be a little bit different than the regular person that goes out there. So yeah, it's just something you're gonna have to practice. Hopefully you can get a chance to practice that. Go play a practice round, and hopefully you can find a lie somewhere on the course where you can throw a couple balls down and try a couple different shots. So Robert says, yes, you answered the question I've had. Great. So glad I was able to help. Mauricio R says, lifting the left heel during the backswing, ease the turn. Yes, I agree. As I start the downswing and put pressure on the left heel, the foot tends to move a lot from the original position. Is that okay? May create consistency issues. So it could, like if you're slipping around all over the place, but the feet moving around is completely fine. As long as you're, getting some good contact, that's completely fine. If you're slipping, it might be an issue. But if it's kind of just moving and like turning over, if you watch a lot, go on YouTube and watch a lot of tour players and watch their lead foot as it's coming down into impact, it's usually going to be, you're going to see, like myself, I look at my swing, my foot's kind of doing that action. You're going to see some players, I talk about Patrick Reed, his foot's kind of coming off the ground. Bubba Watson, he's coming off the ground. You look at someone like a Jordan Spieth, he is like on his ankle like that as he's coming into impact. As long as you're coming into impact and you're not kind of slipping all over the place, then that's going to be completely fine. If you are slipping all over the place, I don't know if you wear golf shoes or not, but I'd maybe invest in some golf shoes that have spikes on them. I know a lot of people like to use, and I actually like them as well, like the spikeless shoes. Those are typically they're more comfortable shoes, and you don't have to mess with changing the spikes out on them. But they don't have as much traction on them as like the regular soft spikes that have like a lot of the kind of the sharper soft spikes on them. Those are really going to hold the ground really, really well. So I would recommend using those. I have a pair of each, and usually when I go play, I'll wear my spikes, but sometimes I'll wear the soft spikes, the spikeless ones, but usually not very often. Charles V says, having trouble hitting greens from inside 150 yards, need accuracy rather than distance. What videos do you recommend for accuracy? So not sure you got to think about what the issue is there. So Charles, if you're still on here, hopefully you are. Let me know, like, what are you missing them short? Are you missing them right? Are you missing them left? Are you chunking it? What's going on with those shots? Because there's all kinds of things that could be going on with, having trouble hitting greens from 150 yards. So if you can give me a little bit more information, I can let you know. But you got to look at, so he's missing left. Thanks, Charles. So, okay. So if you're missing left, that just means the club face is too closed, right? So I'd go out to the range, and I would intentionally try to hit some shots that go to the right, go extreme to the right, go as far to the right as you can. Try to feel like you're really holding off that face as you're coming in there. So normally when you're coming through, the face is kind of rotating over, right? Well, I would actually feel like your hands aren't rotating at all, and you're just leaving that club face dead open. And you'll probably hit some balls way to the right, and that's completely fine. Because once you get a couple of those and you got the right feeling for that, I just want you to ease off of that a little bit to get that club face to square up. So the biggest thing for improving in golf, and the easiest way to fix about any issue in golf, is to understand what the issue is. And if you have trouble with that, we have instructors here to help you with that. And we do offer an unlimited swing review program to help you point out the things that might be going on. But the best thing to do, and I talked about this with Dave and Dave's question earlier, is to exaggerate the opposite of what's going on. So if you are standing up out of the swing and flipping the club, by pushing that right hand through, the opposite would be getting really, really low and turning that handle down, exaggerating that as much as you can. So that's why, for you, the best way to fix this, and it could be a technique issue that's going on. I don't know. It could be that you're kind of swinging over the top as well. But at first, because the ball is always going to start mostly in the direction of the club face. So if you are pulling and the ball is going to the left, I'm assuming that you're right-handed. If that's the case, the face is closed, right? If the ball is going to the left, unless it's starting way to the right and then going to the left, but I'm going to assume that it's just kind of going straight left, more like a pull. That means that club face is closed. So what would we do to exaggerate the opposite? Hit some shots that are way open. Do some practice swings first, even, where you're focusing on keeping that club face wide open as you're coming through. Then hit some shots where you're doing that same thing, and then just slowly start to ease off of it. So try to hit it a little less to the right, until you get that to where it's calibrated to where you want to go. And that's what's called variability training. It's something that we do in our ball striking masterclass to really, really help you focus on what's going on at impact and improving your awareness there of what's going on at impact. So that's what I'd highly recommend there. If you look on camera and you see that you're kind of coming over the top and you're swinging like this with those wedges and irons, then I'd work on our never slice again section, get that club working more from the inside to help you get your club path to be more neutralized. So with that, again, fixing your slice, if a slice is usually caused by an over the top swing, a path to the left, and a face that's open to that path. So what would be exaggerating the opposite? The best way to fix a slice is to learn to hit a hook. So hit a shot that's with a club path that's way too far from the inside and it's way too closed. And at that point, all you have to do is ease off of it. So that's always the best way to fix about any issue in the golf swing. So if we don't have any more questions for today, we'll go ahead and wrap it up right there. Everybody, thanks for joining me. I'll be back here tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. To answer your questions again. Talk to you soon.